Matthew chapter 11. Read just a few verses in a moment. And the message tonight is not a long message. It's more of a straight pointed message than anything. But welcome, Riverside Baptist Church, Kinley, North Carolina. If you were online this morning or looking for this morning's message, it is not available uh, to be recorded. Wasn't available this morning for us to do. So thank you for joining back tonight. But however, I will just throw this out. The message this morning dealt with the word, anybody want to call it out? Won't. W-O-N-T. Not with the apostrophe in it. W-O-N-T. And so I don't know if that was me or not. I don't want to pull mine out and look at it. Okay, we're good. It wouldn't surprise me if it was mine sometime. It happens. Want. W-O-N-T. The man was in want. Jesus was in want. He wanted to do something or needed to do something or desired to do something, I should say. With that, we need folks today that desire to serve the Lord. However, there are folks that don't desire to do that, and it's a crying shame, to be honest with you. But I'm thankful for those that do. All right, by introducing the message tonight, number one, the devil is a liar. The devil is the father of a liar, and one of the lies that he tells, it's hard to do right and easy to do wrong. It's hard to do right and easy to do wrong. As a matter of fact, many people say it's easier to do wrong than it is right, but that is really not true. It is easier to do right than it is to do wrong. It is easier to do things God's way than it is to do things the devil's way. But people look at it and say, oh, it's easier to do this. In other words, people will take the mindset it's easier not to go to church than it is to go to church. No, it's easier to go to church. It really is. If you look at the benefit from it and keep it all together now, you got to understand the devil is a liar. And he has sold that bill of goods. The Bible says that the devil's way is not the easy way. The Bible says that God's way is the easy way. Look, I'll show it to you. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Very familiar passage. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly and in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. God's way, his yoke is easy, and his burden is light. How many of you ever seen somebody that when it come time to they were working, doing something, and I mean they were working themselves to death, trying to get something done, and when it got through, they just worked hard at it, but it wasn't very productive, and it just worked, but never quite get it going. My grandmother, on my mother's side, she was a worker. She had a way of doing things that it just made it flow very simple. It doesn't matter what the project was. If it was in the kitchen, she'd get 4 or 5 pots and pans rattling, and all of a sudden, everything's just going together. She just had a way about moving and doing it. Working around the barn with the tobacco. She had a way of doing it. You remember the days when you had I call it a wrapping horse? You put the stick on it and you tied it about, remember, flip it over there. She had a way about doing it, and she wasn't a small lady. She wasn't a small lady at all. And she had a way, she'd show you how you do it, and if you didn't do it that way, you'd know it. It wasn't long. I mean, you'd realize you were better off to do it that way or look out because something was coming after you. And but she just had a way of making, it was like one motion. She'd take 4 or 5 things and put it together and just make one motion with it. It just made it look so easy. And if you ever tried doing something like that, I mean, it just doesn't work like that. I like finding things out, or I like doing things the easy way. I mean, there's got, I've seen people do stuff, and I've thought to myself, there's got to be easy. My grandfather, y'all remember a peg? What a peg is? You bend over, stick it in the ground. I know I'm not tall, but I still have a back. And I remember my grandfather teaching me how to use that thing. And he was out there, he had a long stick, a tobacco stick, flat on the end with nuts. He'd throw that plant down, take that stick. And I'm going down there. And he's standing up. Come on. Come on. My back's hurting. Hey, you got a back. Come on. You ain't big enough to have a back. Come on. After a little while of doing that thing, said, Granddad, you got one of them sticks? No. Come on. I said, why do you get to use the stick and I got to bend over? He said, once you learn how to do it, we'll get you a stick. We stopped in a little while. I didn't ask him no more. I went and got me a stick. I said, if he can use a stick, I can. I didn't understand why I had to learn to do it with a peg. There's always an easy way. But Satan, when it comes to the spiritual side of things, Satan wants to get us confused and tell us doing it God's way is difficult. And God's way is easy. Here's what we're going to see. All right, here we go. Notice the request in verse 28. The request is come. That's the activity. Come. Come. That's a simple thing. By the way, it's a simple message tonight. Come. Come. It's simple. It's possible. It's an invitation. You're invited. Come. Not only do you have the activity, you have the audience is all. All. It's inclusive. All ye that labor and are heavy laden. There are those that are burdened down with sin in this world. Folks, I know some of you have been saved for a very long time. I understand that. But do you remember what it was like to be under the burden and bondage of sin before you got saved? And all of a sudden you get saved and you get that relief. Folks, there is a world full of people that are living under the burden of sin, but yet they're invited into Jesus. They're invited to come to Him. They're under so much burden. They're under so much bondage. They can't see themselves clear. That's the day and time we're living in. The audience is for all. I think of the Durham Rescue Mission, the clientele. They get so consumed under a life that they have lived, and everywhere they turn, it's just piling more and more on. They're invited to come. We can see that aspect of it. Said, oh yeah, they need Jesus. But folks, it's not just them. It's a lot of other people this day and time. People you come in contact with day in, day out. They're invited to come to Jesus. If you're listening to me tonight, you are invited to come unto Jesus. All ye that are heavy laden and burdened. All. Very clear in verse 28 what we're dealing with. Come unto me. All ye that are labor and heavy, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. That's the audience. Now the announcer says, come unto me. The one doing the talking, if you will. Come unto me, me. Who is the me? Listen. Jesus is the one who gives the invitation. That's a pretty good invitation. Come unto me. It's not come unto the priest. It's not come unto the pastor. It's not come unto the government. You know? Not come unto the church. You say, preacher, wait a minute now. No, it's not. It's when a person comes to Jesus is when it makes a difference in their life. You take a church full of folks that aren't saved, you got a problem. But you find a church that's full of saved folks and a church that's surrendered to the Lord, the people in it, folks, your problems become very minimal. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. Come unto me. It's not come unto a religious ritual. Come unto Jesus. And you know that invitation that's given, it's for all. It's for you and I. It's for all those, especially we think of the lost aspect of it, but it's also for the Christian that's trying to carry the load themselves. The burden is piled up on them. Come unto Jesus. He's the one doing the announcement. And what will he do? The award that's given. I will give you rest. I will give you rest. All right. Let you in on a little secret. I'm getting older. You know how I know I'm really getting older? I rest more. I rest more. Especially, for whatever reason, the last little bit, I've got to the point that I come in the evening and I sit in the chair. You know, my chair's got cruise control on it. You know, as soon as I sit in it, my feet come up, my head goes back. That's the best sleeping, and it doesn't take me long. You give me about a 15-minute nap, I'm good to go for a little while. But if I don't get that little nap, hey, Russell Bell said this, no nap, no snap. He was talking about Sunday afternoon. Rest. Rest. Of course, you think of the physical side. But folks, you know, my mind needs a break. I can tell that. Some of you are like, yeah, I can tell it too. You know, now wait a minute. Now y'all thought about me. Y'all saying that about me. But you know, sometimes it's just we need a break. It needs to be put in neutral, cut off, and just let it rest for a little while. Just let it rest for a little while. That's our life. This is the answer right here. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Folks, you can't get rest without Jesus in this world. You can't get, as a matter of fact, somebody without Jesus, I believe, is so miserable, so unhappy. They're always fighting about something, whether it's external or internal. It's always the conflict. It's always something else. I told somebody this years ago, I'm tired of drama. Get in some situations, I'm just sick and tired of drama. You say, well, as long as you have people, you're going to have drama. That is not true. If people get along, you don't have the drama. Could you imagine? I mean, you just get involved in so much stuff where people just can't get along. They don't like this one, they don't like that one. And it's always drama, drama, drama. Have you ever met a drama queen? Or a drama king? You know, something about that. And I ain't drag queen in case you're listening. I got another message for that one, but that's beside the point. You know, rest from it all. In other words, quit fighting the circumstances in this world. Quit getting under, just quit getting worked up. And let the Lord be the answer to all our problems. That sounds pretty good. What about this? The requirement. You have the request. What about the requirement? This is Matthew chapter 11, verse 29. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. Take my yoke upon you. Yoke. Let's face it. Older generation in here, you understand what a yoke is. What about a younger generation? Do they understand what a yoke is? You think of the yoke of the oxen, the beam around them, the burden that helps them pull the load. Take my yoke upon you. What's his yoke? It speaks of submission to the Lord. Plain and simple. It speaks of a partnership. It speaks of us being laborers together with him. In other words, we've got somebody to help us. As I said, I know I'm getting older. I know that. And I've seen today that we'd be doing something and it would require some physical muscle. I'd be the first one to jump right in and give it all I got. As a matter of fact, I took the mindset of this. If I get in there and do it, nobody else will have to do it. And I know I can do it, and I just get in there and do it. And you know what would happen? The folks that were around me would step back and say, go ahead. Look, it wasn't going to beat me. I took that mindset, it wasn't going to show me up. Today, I'm older. I get it. Edgar, get that. I'll show you how. Here, put your hand right here. Give it all you got now. I want him to succeed. Do you know why I want him to succeed? So I don't have to do it. Folks, when you get tired of pulling the load, you're looking for some help. You're looking for somebody that can reach over there and do it instead of you. And learn, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. We accept God's yoke that we can learn of him. Most people have it wrong. Most people want to learn about Jesus and then accept him. But folks, you accept him first and then you learn about him. Take my yoke, salvation, and learn upon me. His schooling. The schooling. As I said, he's a master teacher. He's never taught anything wrong. He's never had a student he couldn't reach. He's never had a student that had so much learning disabilities involved that he couldn't connect with. The schooling. The schooling. You heard me say this morning, school was not one of the highlights of my life. I didn't like it from kindergarten. Remember, some of you remember my second day of school? It was not good. I didn't like it then. I didn't like it later in life. As I said, I just had a teacher or two that even I remember much about. But school was not really, especially some of the subjects, as I mentioned this morning, they didn't fit me too good. You know that. I remember college class. I blame Charlotte for this. In school, in college, we met. I had a particular class, and it was just a problem class. It was. To start with, the problem was the teacher didn't like me. And the class didn't make any sense, and to complicate matters that much more, Charlotte was in that class. And I didn't have an interest in the class to start with. Now, I did have an interest in Charlotte, but not the class. And it just didn't go over too good. But that was one of those classes. His name was Sidney Stafford, and a philosophy class. And he'd come in, he said, y'all see Mr. Griff? This man's crazy. There ain't nobody in this room named Mr. Griff. He said, yeah, Mr. Griff is sitting up there on that light. Now, can't y'all see him? He'd ask it quite often. Y'all see Mr. Griff today? Finally, everybody, no, he's not there, kind of thing. Finally, one day I said, yeah, I see him. He said, you're lying. He ain't there. Class made no sense whatsoever to me. Had no interest in it. Schooling. Hey, the subjects that Jesus teaches are important. Learn of me. How you going to learn of Jesus if you don't ever listen to Jesus or about Jesus? The relief that comes. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. That sounds like a pretty good thing. You can trade in a burden and bondage for something that's relief, relaxing, and rest. Folks, that's the Lord Jesus Christ. He takes the worries and cares of this world and deals with them. He takes the burden and bondage of sin. He's paid a debt that He didn't owe. For you and I, a debt that we couldn't pay. He takes and exchanges eternal destination of hell to an eternal destination of heaven. That's what He does. That's a reward. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. The devil says, follow the world, it's easier than following God, and that is not true. As a matter of fact, it's easier not to start some things in this world than it is to stop them. Got to be careful on this one. It's easier not to start some things in this world than to stop after you start. Alcohol. It's easier never to start drinking than it is to stop drinking. A distant family member of mine had a moonshine still and made liquor. Did not drink it. He had the mindset that stuff is not made for drinking, that stuff is made for selling. He didn't drink it. He quit making moonshine. Later in life, he went to a doctor. Had a kidney problem. Kidney stones. The doctor told him, if you drink a beer a day, it'll help you with your kidney stones. In less than 6 months after the doctor told him that, he got run over. He was drunk walking down the middle of the road. He got run over. Folks, it's easier not to start drinking than it is to stop. You'll never have that problem. My yoke is easy, my burden. See, Satan paints a pretty picture of it all. Drugs, alcohol, the same concept. It's easier to never start than it is to stop. Satan won't tell you that. God's way is always the easy way. Abstain. Don't start. Point blank and simple. Hey, it's easier to take time out of our daily schedule to read the Bible than it is to live without the strength of the Lord. It's easier to maintain a prayer time than to suffer the loss of the power from God that results from not having His power upon your life. It's easier to be faithful at church than to be backslidden. Plain and simple. But yet Satan says, it's easy to follow me, but it's not. It's easier to say no to the worldly crowd than to have your lives corrupted and damaged your testimony. Come unto me, all ye that labor and heavy laden. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. The reassurance. Notice what the character is that's given. For I am meek and lowly. You ever wondered really about that? Jesus, a picture of true humility, a humble. person had it all, but yet he relates to you and I. I'm meek and lowly. That's his character. The consequences, and you shall find rest, and it doesn't end there. It says, for your souls. For your souls. The reassurance, the character of God, what he does when we do what he says. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The right way is the easy way, the wrong way is the hard way. I'm going to give you a little illustration. It's just one of those things. I really work hard to try to do things the easy way. And sometimes, the harder I try to do it the easy way, the bigger the mess I make. There with what we do and so forth, mechanic work comes up. Always something breaks and always something to fix and always something to repair. A true mechanic that's working on something really, really needs the Lord, because it never goes according to plan. Had a tractor, had a front end loader on it, and the starter messed up on it. This was a while back, and this is the best illustration I can give you. So, starter messed up on it. I need to put a new starter on it. So, I do what I always do. I pick up the phone. I've got a whole list of numbers in it. I punch up. I call John Deere to get a starter. Needs a starter. That's what I got to do. I called John Deere, told him what tractor. Hey, I'm on first name basis with him. Hey, how you doing? Yep, I need a starter. Which tractor? Tell him which one. Oh, yeah. We'll go right down the list. When he gets through, one of the questions I ask him, number one, have you got one? And number two is, how much is it going to cost? And number three, once we decide that's what I'm going to do, I say, put it on the counter. Somebody will be right down there and get it. Called him. Yep, we got one. How much is it going to cost? A starter, $565. I said, I'll tell you what you do. You leave it in that bin. I said, because I'm not going to pay you $565 for a starter. Yeah, man, I know what you mean. It's high. I said, yeah. I said, he said, what you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'm not going to pay you $565 for a starter. I said, I don't want to buy the tractor again. You know. So I looked at it and I thought about it. And I said, I'm going to take the starter off and I'm going to carry it and have it rebuilt. I'll get it back and I'll put the starter on. So, put the phone back out, called the man, Wolfsburg starter. I said, hey, I got a starter on this tractor. I get it pulled off, bring it to you. What you think you charge to fix a rebuild? He said, probably about $100. I said, I'll have it up there just as soon as I get it off. He said, what's it on? I told him again. He said, oh, yeah, it won't be no problem. This tractor had a loader on it. Scott is already smiling. He understands. Never taken the loader off. I looked at it and I said, I think that loader's got to come off. I sure don't want to take that loader off. It sure would be a whole lot easier if we could take that starter out without taking that loader off. Sure enough, we got under there, and I got the starter loose. Got the bolts out of it and slid it back. Do you know that starter would not come off and come out from under that tractor? I could have turned the tractor upside down. It won't coming out of there. We had to pull the pins out of the loader, and beside the tractor it had a metal plate, and I had to undo that, pry it open, and I could get the starter out. We're about 4 hours into the project now of something that was real easy. Got the starter out, took it up there. He worked on it, went back and picked it up a couple hours later, come back and went to put it in. Same thing, pried it open, got it in. I got the starter stuck in it. Well, this particular starter had 3 bolts on it. Got one started, got the second one started. We had to get the third one started. The next day at 2 o'clock, we had the third one finally in it. So it took 4 of us at least 8 hours to take the starter off and get it back on. Because I said that's an easier way. It was not the easy way. 6 months go by, and my whole time I'm thinking, yeah, I ain't going to do that no more. I ain't going to do that no more. 6 months go by, that same starter that we had taken off, had it rebuilt, put it back on, messed up again. It had to come back off. Took out my phone, called a man at John Deere. You got a starter for this tractor? Yep. How much is it? You know how much it is, $565. I said, dog, I'm not paying you $565 for that starter. He said, that's fine, that's your choice. He said, what you going to do, take it off and go get it rebuilt? I said, I don't think so. He said, what you going to do? I said, I think I'm going to go online and see if I can find one. He said, yeah, I was aiming to tell you that last time. You probably could find one cheaper. I went online, bought a new starter for $135. Rebuilt, of course, but new to me. It doesn't end there. I said, I ain't taking that starter off till I get a new one. It come in 3 days. We're down there at the shop, 8 o'clock one morning. We undo the bolts, slide the starter out, the one that's messed up. I set it over there on the counter. I set the new one up beside of it to make sure it's going to match. These don't look the same. I called the company I got it from. I said, these starters don't look the same. He said, they're not. He said, everything works. Everything's the same. He said, but your new starter is 1 inch smaller in diameter. And the reason they make it that way is so you can slide it right in and put the bolts in it. I said, you're kidding me. He said, He said, it's really hard to change that old starter if you put another one the same size back in it. I said, now you tell me. Which would have been the easiest way from the beginning? No, the new starter, $565, was the same size. This was a knockoff brand. It fit right in. Folks, I'm just telling you, usually when we look back on things, we can say, it sure would have been much easier to do it this way. God's way is always the easy way. God's way is always the best way. God's way is always the most beneficial way. But yet there's a world, including us, that we always try to do things my way. My way. We're going to read the passage again, and then we'll be done. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay? The come, the invitation. Unto me, that's the one that's extending it. All, that's inclusive. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, folks, that's all of us. That do it burdened down from time to time. We've had enough. And I will give you rest. That's what we're seeking. Relief. Take my yoke upon you. This is the requirement. And learn of me. For I'm meek and lowly in heart. That's his character. And ye shall find rest unto your what? Souls. Let's face it, folks. We live in a world that's tormented inside, troubled. For my yoke is easy and my burden's light. God's way is always the easy way. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Thank you for joining us at Riverside Baptist Church, Kinley, North Carolina, on a Sunday night. I trust that you will turn to the Lord Jesus Christ for all your troubles and trials in life. But folks, it's the only one you can turn to for salvation, and that's the only way you'll ever find relief in this world, in true rest. When you lay down at night, you're troubled. I believe a person under conviction for sin is troubled enough that they'll turn to Jesus. And that's where you need to go. Thank you for joining us. Heads bowed, eyes closed. As Miss Susie comes tonight, ask her if she'll just play something tonight.